All right. Hi, welcome. My name is Lindsay Persico, and I'm sitting down here today with Adam. He's a friend of mine. We've kind of known each other for a short period of time, but wanted to sit down today and kind of share a story. I am a mother of three. I live in Montana, and I'm kind of an outdoor focused, outdoor enthusiast, coach, fitness nutrition coach, and a survivalist. Adam, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
So my name's Adam Luke. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm licensed in Idaho, California, and Tennessee. But my background and how I got to where I am is sort of through my own story of my own life. Like, I wanted to know more about emotions. I wanted to know more about what drives us. And that's why I'm super excited to sit down with you, Lindsay, as like you've shared some of this story with me of what we're going to cover in this podcast. And I think that this is something that's going to resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah, I have a story, a background. Everybody does. You have a story. I have a story. There's always a story to how we get to where we are, and I feel like there's potential in everybody's story to help somebody else. And I think a lot of times we have the unique ability to reach a
Mm,
certain group of people based off of what we've experienced that makes us able to connect with them. And my hope is that through this story, I'll be able to connect with those people that I'm meant to connect with.
yeah, I think that's eloquently put. There's so many times in our lives that we have these moments where maybe we sort of look up to the heavens and ask why. And sometimes it's not only for us. And it's when we've come to the realization of why we've gone through what we've gone through in life that not only was it for our own growth, but maybe we need to give that away so that other people can also get some growth.
Yeah, I think those little pieces of life that happen are there because down the road, there's somebody we're supposed to connect with, and that's going to give us the key to unlock
Yeah.
that connection. So, really cool. So, we're going to dive right in. I'm going to kind of start with where I think that this story starts for me. It begins when I was a pretty young girl. I grew up in a small town with a very conservative Christian background. My parents homeschooled me all the way through, which I loved. It was great for me to be a homeschooled kiddo. And I actually attribute a lot of my strength
Mm,
and my character to that upbringing. I think the values that were instilled in me and the personal value that was instilled in me was instrumental in helping me make it through some of the hard things I had to go through.
mm,
But in some ways, I also look at it as the beginning of what narrowed my vision for myself. So when I was young, it was kind of hard for me to think of my life in any other context than you're going to grow up, get married, and be a wife and a mom, which
mm.
is an excellent thing to do. And I am so glad that I've done that. I am a wife and I am a mother, and they are the pinnacle pieces of my life. They're the best parts of my life. But there was so much more out there that I could have been looking forward to. And I think I was somewhat limited in my perspective. And that may have been my personality as well, and kind of the way that I looked at things. But growing up, that's kind of what I was looking for. I also had an interest in horses, and I spent a lot of time in the outdoors. And that led me to a youth camp. I worked at a youth camp as a wrangler for 3 summers, and it was really a fun job. It stretched me outside my comfort zone because I had been a little homeschool girl in a town of 200 people. Um, Made me get in touch with just learning how to communicate with lots of people as a camp just full of kids and staff and lots of interactions. And
So
while I
you were
was
interacting with more people at camp than you would have ever in your town. Because like 200 people, I'm starting to think like more people are coming through the camp on like a semi-weekly basis than
yes.
yeah, that would push anyone outside their comfort zone.
Yes, it was very good for me. It challenged me in a
Mm,
lot of ways. I learned a lot and it kind of just opened me up to the world, but I still had this underlying like I'm not looking for dating a person for fun. I was very, very focused on finding a person I felt like I could spend the rest of my life with. I did
Yeah.
not date. I had guys that were interested in me and they'd reach out and ask if I wanted to go on a date. And I'd look at them and their situation and be like, could I see myself with this person forever? And if
Mm,
the answer was no, I wouldn't go, because to me, it wasn't worth wasting my time and energy and emotions on something that wasn't going to last. So in this camp, I met a guy that I felt like checked all the boxes. I had
mm,
basically a checklist of, what is it going to take to be somebody I'm going to spend the rest of my life with? They had to have a similar worldview
mm.
as I did, right? They had to have
Yeah.
that conservative Christian background. So this guy that I met was the son of the camp director. So the guy who ran the camp had quite a few boys and a daughter, and then this young man who was similar age to me. And the first year that I worked there, the first summer, we just we hung out, we played paintball, we rode horses, we did all the fun youth activities on the ranch. And then by the second summer, we kind of started dating. We would go hang out. Everybody kind of knew we were a couple.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of red flags in this situation.
Hmm.
But as I said, my interactions and my experience with relationships was very limited. I wasn't out there dating a lot. I wasn't in high school with a whole bunch of
Mm,
teenagers. I didn't have a lot of interactions to base this relationship off of.
like
So
the
I
exposure of like, oh, wait a second, how do we navigate stuff like this? Because you're still holding on to the checklist of like, but he hits X, Y, and Z.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of those red flags just went right over my head. I did not see them.
Okay.
Now looking back, they were very blatant, very obvious, but I was not aware. So we ended up dating a little bit off and on. There was a period of
Okay.
time where we kind of stopped dating. He seemed to be interested in other gals. And I
Mm,
was like, I'm serious about this. And if you're not serious, then I'm not going to waste my time here. We ended up about 3 years into the on and off relationship. It kind of came to a head like that, where I said,
okay.
hey, I'm looking for a serious relationship. I'm ready to move forward with my life. And if you're not
Mm,
there, then I got to go. And he came back the next week with a promise ring and basically said, I want to spend my life with you. I want to commit to you. We were still very young. I was at that point probably 18. He was
okay.
17. So pretty young.
But a promise ring is pretty significant in like, again, your background. Like you're like, okay, wait a second, that's another box.
Yes. It was a commitment. It was a
Yes.
viable, tangible
Mm,
commitment to me, which is what I was looking for.
yes.
I wasn't willing to continue to spend time in this relationship if I didn't feel like there was commitment
Hmm.
to it. And that seemed to kind of cement that for me in my mind. Like, he's committed. So at this point, he was going to become an electrician. He was in the I'm trying to remember what they call the training for that.
The
But
apprenticeship?
yes, he was in an apprenticeship program to become an electrician. And he had about 2 weeks left before he was going to get his journeyman's license.
Okay.
And we ended up taking a trip to Montana. He lived in Washington. I lived in Idaho.
Okay.
Took a trip to Montana with his family, just a fun vacation trip. And he ended up stopping in at this taxidermy shop in Montana. And the guy was looking for kind of an apprentice taxidermist, somebody who he could
Mm,
hire to help with all of the different things that go into that and train him.
yeah.
And he was very interested in that and always wanted to do that. So he ended up leaving. He only had 2 weeks left before he was going to have his journeyman's license as an electrician, but he left and went to apprentice in Montana at this taxidermy shop. So
where were you in that process of like how like did that surprise the heck out of you or like
Yeah, it was kind of surprising to everybody. His parents were like, "What are you doing?"
yes.
um, but he kind of had this reputation for flying by the seat of his pants and doing kind
Okay.
of what he felt was right at the moment. And they had some family friends that lived in the area that had a small apartment for rent. And he found all the pieces he needed to put this together and decided that's what he was going to do. But right before he was supposed to move over there, he ended up wrecking his vehicle and had no vehicle to get to
Oh man.
Montana. I was there in Washington at the time when he wrecked his vehicle. He was okay, but he did not have a vehicle. And I did have a vehicle. So the plan turned into I was going to take him over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the way there, it was wintertime. We had to go up over some passes. And on the way there, he proposed to me and asked me to marry him. And he said, "There's just one condition. You have to marry me tomorrow." And in my mind, I'm like, well, that's kind of where we were headed anyway. This is what we were going to do. He's starting this brand new life over there. We can start it together. And it made sense to me as a
Yeah.
19-year-old girl. I could see why it made sense to him. It made sense to me. We didn't have any money for a wedding or
Yeah.
anything like that. So, making a big, I was so focused on, I want to grow up, have a family, be a mom with, a man who shares my
Yeah.
thoughts and ambitions. And to me, it just was all going in the right direction. I wasn't one of those girls who had these big aspirations for a giant wedding.
Mm,
So to me, it was like, yeah, I'm a simple person. Like, this is simple.
yeah.
This makes sense. My folks, on the other hand,
Not as simple for them.
not as simple for them. They were very supportive of me. I had a very good track record of being a responsible person. I wasn't
Yeah.
somebody that was getting in trouble. I wasn't out doing a lot of things
Yeah.
a lot of younger people were doing. Generally, I was known to be a more mature person for my age. And so even though it brought up questions in their mind and concerns,
Yes.
they were supportive and they were like, all right, we'll come up to the courthouse. They kind of made a thing of it. A couple different friends came up and we ended up just getting, what's the term for that? When you just go to the courthouse?
Well, eloping essentially.
Yes, we ended up
Yeah.
just eloping at the local courthouse on the way through to Montana.
On the way through. I
On
love it.
the
It was
way
just like a
through.
little like, yeah, we got some gas and got married.
Yeah, basically, we got some
Yeah.
gas, stopped off with my folks, and got married.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, we ended up in Montana with one vehicle, small little apartment, but it was everything we needed. We didn't
Because
need a
there's
lot of
not a
money.
lot that you need, right?
Right.
And you were sort of in a minimalist position of your life. Like, I actually have the things or the resources that I believe I need to get the things I have. Like, I have the man, the marriage is here, the kids are coming. Like, we're in a good spot.
Yeah, it was like starting out a young couple, just the beginning
Mm,
stages of their life. He had a job he was passionate about and excited about. We had a place to
yeah.
live, we had a vehicle. And like I said, I've always been a simple person. I do not need a lot to be happy. It's not, for me,
Yeah.
it's not about the possessions, or it's about the experiences and the people around me that
Mm,
make my life valuable. And to me, I had everything
yes.
I needed. But it wasn't very long. It was probably 1 month into the marriage where I remember distinctly finding myself sitting in the corner in our bedroom in the dark, kind of hiding out, just wondering, like, what did I get myself into?
Mm,
Because once we were married, all of the things that should have been red flags early on for me became very, very loud
yes.
and very, very noticeable. Um,
It's almost like they get bull horns once you get married, right? Like,
Yes.
the trial package is over. Here I
Yes.
am.
Yeah, it was a rude awakening. Let's just put it that way.
Mm,
And I had grown up in a very calm and quiet family. Like the
okay.
worst argument I can remember my parents ever having, my mom threw a toilet paper roll at my dad.
Oh,
That's as
attack via Charmin.
yes, that's as violent as my household ever got. It was not loud. It was
Mm,
not tumultuous. It was very quiet and peaceful in my
yeah.
home. Um, and I would find myself just intimidated a lot by the anger. He would get very angry, throwing things, tantrums if something didn't go his way. Um,
So
and
there was a volatility that you were not used to.
yes, yes, that was
Mm,
kind of the initial thing that I remember making me feel like, I don't know. I don't know what this is. This isn't what I was expecting.
yeah.
Um, and it didn't make sense to me because a lot of times there wouldn't be much rhyme or reason to it. It would just be everything was fine. And then one tiny little thing didn't go quite smoothly. And it was like the world had come to an end.
Mm,
So, my now looking back in that situation, I would be like, we're 1 month into this and I'm 19. Maybe I should get out of this. But at the time, if you recall, I was raised conservative Christian. And in that community, divorce is almost never an option. There are
no.
a few circumstances, but generally the goal is to always find a way through whatever it is
Yeah.
that's causing the issues and not to just give up, to just keep trying. And so that was my approach. Divorce never crossed my mind. To me, it
Yeah.
wasn't an option. So I started deep diving into what I felt like had given me answers in the past. And that was my the Bible and what it talked about with relationships and how the wife should support the husband and
Mm,
respect him. And I tried to do everything that I possibly could to help him to succeed. In my mind, he was young and immature.
mm.
And in time, he would mature and things would improve. That's kind of what I hoped. So I thought in the process, if I support him through this, if I show up the way that I'm supposed to show up in a marriage, then in time he will grow and things will improve.
And just to clarify that, so what I'm hearing is you sort of made this decision of like, I'm gonna make myself small in an attempt to make him bigger. You sort of dismissed, it sounds like you were dismissing yourself a little bit.
I knew that what I needed and wanted wasn't what I had, but I
Mm,
felt like if I upheld my responsibility and my role, that it would create the space for him to become what I had hoped he would be.
gotcha.
It didn't happen that way, but that was my thought.
Yeah.
And as I did that, as any enabling behavior does, which is what I ended up
Mm,
realizing I was doing, it continued to get worse. So he started to have problems at work where he wouldn't show up on time or he would make his boss angry. And it was in his mind, never through fault of his own. It was
yeah.
his boss. And when he would come home from work and had some interaction like that with his boss, the situation at home then was far worse. He was more angry. He was more volatile. So my response was to try to make sure that his interactions at work were as good as possible. So then I took that on my
Mm,
shoulders. Um, I would make sure he got up in time in the morning. I would get up early. I would make his breakfast. I would get his clothes ready for him. I would go start his truck and scrape his windows. And then I would go wake him up. And it even got to the point where I remember one time putting clothes on him just to try to get him out the door in time to get to
yeah.
work so he wouldn't have an altercation with his boss.
Mm,
And I remember one time being out in the driveway, scraping the windows of his truck, and the gal that owned the place where we were staying came
Yeah.
by, and she looked at me. She's like, you got to stop doing this. You got to stop doing this. You're not helping him. And
Wow, so she called you right out.
yeah, she did.
So
And
she could see it.
yeah, she could see. Oh, everybody could see it. It was very
Mm.
obvious to anyone on the outside. But to me, I was holding this little world together.
Yeah.
Like I was sitting there, and in my mind, I understood everything around that was happening inside, and other people didn't. And I thought,
Mm.
yeah, from the outside, I know why you think that, but you don't realize I have to hold this together. Otherwise, it's all going to fall apart. And if I hold it together long enough, and then everything's going to be okay.
It'll actually set, right? Like I'm the glue and I'm just waiting for it all to dry.
To dry. Exactly. That's the perfect analogy. So I understood what she was saying, but it didn't change my behavior at all.
Mm.
And around this time is when I found out that I was pregnant. And I was
Oh.
very excited, actually, because to me,
Yeah.
this was a part of my hopes and
Yeah.
dreams. I wanted
Natural progression.
yes, I wanted to have children, and I was excited to have kids. And I guess in my mind, being young and naive, I didn't even realize how much the situation was going to affect my kiddo, because I
Mm.
couldn't see too far into the future. I think at this point I was already starting to kind of live in survival mode.
Yep.
So a lot of
It was
my
every
focus-
24 hours.
Yes, it was day-to-day living. I was focusing on the day-to-day. And there was a lot
Mm.
to juggle in
Yeah.
the day-to-day to make sure that I was keeping all those wet glued pieces together. So for me, this was just exciting. I was going to have a little buddy, and I was psyched about that. And she truly was. She was such
Oh
a
my
huge
gosh.
blessing for me. She gave me so much just hope and direction and inspiration to
Mm.
work hard and to do my best. And she just brought so much joy to my life. But there was definitely, I don't think I have a time that like sticks out in my mind where I realized I'm going to have to be very protective of this little person.
Yeah.
But that definitely started in pretty early, me looking at them and thinking, or looking at her and thinking like, now I have to try to balance all these pieces around making sure
Yeah.
that she doesn't end up in a bad position.
Because
as
your
well.
world is starting to shift. You've got that maternal instinct of all of a sudden, like,
Mhm.
wait a second, I'm mama bear. This is the cub. How do I navigate the tumultuous situations we're getting ourselves into?
Right. And still protect her in the process.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it started to become a lot less about me. You know,
Mm.
my part of it had already been massively taken out of the equation
Yeah.
to try to make sure that everything was held together. But I think even more so, as soon as a kiddo entered the picture, then my needs just really went far, far to the back burner.
Yeah.
Because she was number one. And then, maintaining his sanity was number two. And then I was back there somewhere. So
Mm.
she came along. And at this point, his relationship with his boss had gotten so bad that he was going to end up leaving his job.
Oh, wow.
And we did not.
So you're like
have much-
a year in to the move. Where are you
Let's
time
see.
wise?
I think we had probably been married about a year and a half when she was
Okay.
born, or maybe a little longer than that.
Yeah.
So coming up on maybe around 2 years having lived in Montana.
Okay.
And my folks lived in Idaho, and we decided that it would be nice to be close to family, which
Mhm.
was very attractive to me at this point. There was, resources there. There was support there. Yeah. And I can't honestly recall how it came about. I think there may have been a job possibility over there, but I honestly do not remember why we ended up deciding to go when we did. But we moved to Idaho, and we ended up staying with my parents while we
Okay.
were looking for a place.
Yeah.
And it's that same town. It's 200 people. Like there's not a lot of places. There's not a lot of homes around there.
Yeah.
And he was, and I look back at this and I find this to be such a blessing, but at the time it was very frustrating to me. He was very adamant that we did not go into debt. He did not want to go into debt to purchase a home. There was a home that came available and it was within our budget.
Yeah.
I think he was working for a farmer at the time, and he got cold feet and backed out of the loan, didn't want to do that. And now I look back and I'm so thankful, because we would have still probably been saddled with that at this point. So God was probably watching out for me on that front. But
well, because it didn't get set in stone. It was sort of like,
yeah,
it gave you some leeway you didn't even know that you were going to need to utilize at some point in time.
Yes. And while we were still living with my parents, I found out I was pregnant with baby number 2.
See, this is the other aspect of a conservative Christian upbringing. We don't find out how this keeps happening till about the second one.
Yeah, I was actually so shocked. Because I was only 3 months after having my daughter, which is incredibly rare. Like generally,
basically Irish twins.
Yes,
right.
Yes, I was not thinking that I was able to become pregnant yet.
Yeah,
like there was no indicator.
Yeah.
But that you don't have to have one. So, but in the end, this also ended up being a huge blessing, and I'll explain why later. But at the time,
were your parents seeing his behaviors as well? Like, was he able to mask himself at this point?
My parents, especially my father, were so frustrated with this situation. They saw what was going on and they wanted to help. And this was a theme that from this point forward was a continuous thing. People would see the situation. They would be very concerned. They would try to say something and it would just make him angrier. And then I would have to deal with the repercussions of his anger. And I would try to keep people from getting involved or seeing what was happening because it made my situation harder.
Yeah.
And I know it was such a stressful time for my family, for my friends.
Yeah.
Looking back, we've had a lot of conversations about that and how difficult it was for them to just stand by and watch. So I ended up pregnant with baby number 2. And we were in this situation living in the basement at my parents' place for, it had to have been, it was over 9 months because I had the baby while we were still there.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember how long we were actually there, but it wasn't too long after having the baby that we had worked out a deal with my grandmother, who owned some property outside of town. Okay. That it had been passed down in the family for generations, but had never been surveyed and actually separated into the 2 family units who owned the land. So nobody had the ability to use the land because nobody really knew who owned what.
Yeah.
So we worked out a deal with my grandma that we were going to have the property surveyed and pay for the property being surveyed. And then during that survey, they would parcel out a 10-acre parcel, and we were going to build a cabin on this 10-acre parcel.
Yeah.
It was basically his way of us having a place to live that didn't have to go us going into debt. So we got the property surveyed, the 10 acres was parceled out, and we built a small 12 by 16 foot cabin, which is the reason it was that size is because that's the size that you don't have to get a building permit for. So basically a shoebox.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here because it's like I have a 12 by 20 storage unit.
Yes. Smaller than that.
Bigger.
Yes. was extremely tiny. Um, he is very skilled craftsman. He's very good at building. And he built it very cute. The inside was very adorable, but it had no running water and initially no electricity. It had no siding. It had house wrap on it. And we moved out there with I want to say my oldest was, maybe a year and a half at this point, and then a brand new baby, a little tiny baby. She might not have even been a year and a half. She might have been younger than that, because I think my new baby was probably only a couple of months, 3 months old, maybe.
Wow.
Little tiny babies. So we're living in this little cabin, no running water. So we're hauling water. It's undeveloped land. So we had like a bed of a bed of gravel down for a driveway, but it's in pasture land. So it's continually sinking and needing more gravel, and just the complications of living basically off grid in a tiny cabin with two babies. I was a good person for this because I have a ton of outdoor experience. I loved being in the outdoors. I loved camping. I loved all of those things. But the combination of this and the high amount of stress that I was under because of the situation that I was in, and then the increase of frustration and altercations because of the close quarters and everything being so difficult to operate, made it a very stressful situation.
Yeah, if you didn't have a place to hide in your own apartment or in your basement at your parents', you don't have any place for yourself in 12 by 16.
Yeah, it's pretty tight quarters. And he would go to work. At this point, his work was again back into another situation where the boss was no good and always getting on his case, right? So he was having tumultuous experiences with jobs. I don't remember what time frame he lost which jobs, but he went through a few different jobs, and there was a period of time where he was unemployed and drawing unemployment and was only bringing in, I believe, about maybe $400 a month. It wasn't much.
Oh, wow.
And I wanted to get a job. I was like, I will go get a job. And he wouldn't let me get a job. He did not want me to get a job because that would be, I think, humiliating for him in that he was not providing, and it would not look good in the community if he was not, if his wife was out earning the income. And slowly, little by little, these kind of control things started getting worse. So I used to go into my mom's house to do laundry. That's where there was water and a washer and dryer. So I would cart the babies and the laundry into my mom's place and I would do the laundry. Well, my parents were getting more and more vocal about how concerned they were about the situation. And he found out about it and told me he didn't want me going there anymore to do laundry. So then I started carting the two babies and all the laundry into this tiny little backroom laundromat at the gas station in the tiny little town to do my laundry. And my mom came in one day and I remember her walking in and just thinking, how am I going to explain this to her? Because she didn't know that I was going
serendipity there. She finds you there.
Yeah, she found me there and she's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just doing my laundry. And she's like, why didn't you come to the house? Because for her, it was the best part of her week when I would come in and bring the little baby
two granddaughters. Yeah, she's loving it.
Yeah, she loved it. And they'd come up the walkway. She still talks about them toddling up her walkway and how excited. She's like, that was the happiest I ever was when I'd see those little girls come walking up the sidewalk. And I just said something to the effect of, well, Jake doesn't want me to do it there anymore because it's not, he's frustrated or something. I don't remember. I gave her some kind of a probably half-truth explanation for why I was there to try to brush it off and not make her feel bad.
Yes.
But it just kept getting worse and worse that way.
Mm,
And I started to feel more and more alienated from the people that kind of kept me sane. Like those interactions and getting
yeah.
away from the cabin, talking to people who were living very normal lives was
Who
really,
had heat.
yes,
Like,
was
weird
really,
things like that.
was really good. You know, you have access
So
to a shower.
this could be sort of formed up as the season of isolation.
Yes. Yes. I
Okay.
think it felt a lot like that. And I remember feeling just very stuck. There was one time where he got very angry, and instead of staying there, the girls were napping up in the loft, and
Yeah.
I left the cabin and walked up into the timber on that property because I just needed to get away.
Yes.
And I watched from up there and watched him leave. And he left the cabin with the babies sleeping in the loft. And I knew they were up there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get back. Like, if I tried to get away or leave, there was no
They
freedom
didn't
really.
have protection.
Yeah, there was no way for me to really
Yeah.
get away. So I kept plugging along like this. I would spend every day while he was at work trying to make sure that I did everything I possibly could in this little cabin to make him happy when he got home. So I remember keeping like tomato tops and every little piece of food that I possibly could, because I might be able to use it to make something that he would like when he got home.
Mm,
I wouldn't throw anything away. It was like living in the, what do they say, the Depression era?
yes.
Everything is a resource.
Absolutely.
And it didn't matter what I did. I could have went out and added a extra room into our
Yeah.
little outhouse or something. I could have done something really helpful, but he would always come home and find whatever it was that wasn't right and complain about that.
Was that a demoralizing process for you? Because here you are, like pretty much focused not on your own happiness, making sure the babies are taken care of, make sure that he has the best setup he possibly can when he comes home, and then being told that I failed in one more aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to the point where I knew, don't expect any praise, don't expect any
Mm,
appreciation. Just do it, because if you don't, he'll be even more upset. So at least maybe the level of him being upset is going to be less if you accomplish whatever you can. It was very just day to day trying to make
yeah.
it through. And one day he came home and he said, I have got to tell you something. And I was like, okay, this is not normal. And he's like, ended up proceeding to tell me that he had cheated on me multiple times. One of the gals he had cheated with me on used to be my youth group leader in church when I was a teenager. So quite a lot older than me.
Yeah.
And the other one was an older gal in our community who had had a rough life and
Mm,
was interested. She had started coming to church, but was very new to Christianity and the Bible and all of that. So
mm,
I had started meeting with her on a fairly regular basis, just kind of doing a Bible study.
yeah.
So a friend, but another older lady.
Hmm.
And I remember in my mind, I look at it now and I feel like a crazy person, because I remember thinking, oh, good, which should never be the response of somebody who just found out that their husband was cheating on them. But in my mind, I thought maybe this is why he's been so mean. Maybe he's just been so frustrated and angry with himself. And now that it's off his chest, if I
He's
stay,
freed.
yeah, if I stay and he realizes that I, will stick with him through this, maybe then he will appreciate
Mm,
me. Maybe then he will start treating me better and things will start to be improved. Like, this is finally the thing that's going to push it over the edge. And now he's going to appreciate me. I look at that now and I know that I was to the point where my brain was not working right anymore. I
Yeah.
was I was so brainwashed at this
You
point.
you're pretty much Stockholmed into this situation, and this was that key component of being like, oh, perfect, one more way that I can serve your needs, and this will
In a
actually
big
be the
way.
good stuff that'll get us back on track.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
I look at it and I'm like, wow, that is incredible to imagine myself in that place. It doesn't even feel like it was me, if
no, I
that
was
makes
just about to
sense.
say that it does not feel like you.
No, no. So my response to this was to go to the lady that I was friends with. And I went to her place and I told her, I know what happened.
Mm,
Don't ever speak to me or my husband or my children ever again. And the other gal I wasn't really in contact with anymore. So I didn't say anything to her. But there was really I don't really remember responding to him at all.
mm,
Um I I ended up contacting a Christian counselor,
okay.
and I told him, I said, these are the things that I want to happen. I want us to
Mm,
go to a Christian counselor and try to get some help through this, because I knew it was going to be, I wasn't so far gone that I didn't realize it was going to be impactful.
yeah.
So like, let's go to a Christian therapist and start working through this. I said, I would really like you to have a mentor, a man that you respect and look up to, that you can talk to if you're struggling or having issues.
Mm,
And I would like you to meet with that person on a regular basis.
yeah.
And that was basically the two things that I had requested. And we went to the counselor, and he basically said, she needs to be able to know where you are 24/7. She needs to be able to have access to your phone. She needs to be able to ask any questions she wants. And I looked at the guy and I said, look, I have two babies. I don't want another one. I don't need another child to babysit. I'm like, if he cannot monitor himself, I want to know that. I don't want to be sitting here and babysitting him into
Mm,
into staying with me and
yeah.
staying um
I don't want to be stuck in this hypervigilance and anxiety of wondering what he's doing at all times.
yeah, I didn't have the capacity for that.
No.
There was no capacity for that. And I honestly was like, if the only thing keeping you from going out and cheating again is the fact that I'm checking up on you 24/7, go cheat. I would rather you cheat at this point. That's not worth it. So that wasn't very helpful. The counselor was not very helpful. His
So,
approach
like
was
in the
not.
way that you just verbalize that, is this also a period of time where you start to build a little bit more resolve for yourself?
I think at this point I started to realize I don't love this person anymore.
Mm,
I don't care if he cheats because I don't love him. So him cheating doesn't
mm,
mean anything to me. Um, and I guess I can't even really pinpoint when that happened, but quite early on, really,
okay.
it happened to where I didn't really love him anymore. Everything I was doing was not for love. I was
Yeah.
doing it out of obligation.
Oof.
I felt like this was my task. This was what I had agreed to this. I was
Mm,
contracted into this, and I was going to make the best of it that I possibly could. So it was all done out of the desire to just fulfill the role that I had signed up for, basically. And he continued to fail to meet up with the person he said he was going to meet up with. It was a man in our community that I greatly respected. He was somebody I had known for a really long time, an
yeah.
awesome person. We're still very close friends. And he agreed to meet with my husband and try to help him through some of these things, which
Yes.
was so amazing. But he wouldn't show up to the meetings
Mm,
for whatever reason. He would be late, he was always late. to everything.
It
So
sounded like he was very avoidant. He liked to avoid the things that he felt confrontation in.
yes, he didn't ever really live his life considering other people. It was
Mm,
always, what do I need right now, and taking
yeah.
care of his needs. Um, and I remember sitting at this point, we had a generator and we had a little TV in the cabin and we could watch shows.
Living the high life.
Oh man. We were sitting there watching Friends of all things. And I was sitting there and I was so emotionally exhausted. I
Mm,
was just spent. I was like, I don't have very much left to give. I am
yeah.
so tired. And I remember praying and being like, God, I need a sign. Like,
Yeah.
is this still worth me putting my time and energy
Mm,
into? Or is it not, because I don't have much left to give? And if it's
yeah.
not worth it, I can't keep giving.
No.
And it was instant after I prayed that. This gal walked across the screen and he said to me, it's a good thing she doesn't live around here because I would cheat on you with her. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is the clearest sign. You could
Sometimes
have,
when you're like, whoa, like, God, that was quick.
yeah.
Uh,
And he knew how clear a sign I needed. And it was clear as glass.
yeah.
So from that moment forward, I knew I was done. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm done. And it was almost Christmas. And I was like,
Mm,
I do not want my daughters to remember Christmas as the time when their mom and dad broke up. So I didn't say anything.
yeah.
I didn't say anything until after Christmas. And it's really odd. It was basically the day that I had decided was time to tell him. I was like, I'm going to tell him the next day. We had went to some friends of ours house for dinner and I was pretty standoffish. I had so much on my mind. And my current husband was friends with these people, but didn't live anywhere near. He lived in Florida. He just happened to be at their house that night.
Mm,
And his dog was there, Joe, who we still have. And I was just in mental turmoil because I
yeah.
was scared. I was scared.
Oh, absolutely.
He had many bouts while we were married of being suicidal.
Mm,
I had walked in on him holding a gun to his head at one point and telling me that I was lucky he was still there. Um, because of
mm,
all the different things that I had seen, I did not know what was going to happen when I told him I was leaving. I was scared. I was scared that he would do something crazy.
yeah.
So we were there for
Were you
dinner.
ever scared for your safety?
That is the one thing I have explained to a lot of people. I am a very hard-headed person and I'm a very strong person. And I had that reputation. And I believe that that's the one reason that he never straight up hit me, because I think he knew if he did, that would have been the end.
Yeah.
There was a line. I had a line. It was not
Hmm.
it was not where it should have been, but I had a
Yeah.
line and he was very careful to always tiptoe up to that
Mm,
line and he never crossed it.
he knew the boundary.
He knew the boundary. And I think he had a healthy respect and fear for me.
Mm,
And rightfully so. I was a strong-willed, strong person, and I would have stood up for myself
yeah.
had that happened. He found other ways to hurt me that weren't crossing that line. And if I called him out on it or got upset about it, it was always that I was being sensitive because he was joking and it was supposed to be fun. And I
Mm,
wasn't having fun, and that was on me. So I never really felt in fear for my life, because in my mind, if we were going to go there,
yeah.
I would have stopped it.
Mhm.
and I felt capable of stopping it. Um, and looking back, like sitting there in so many situations, like tiptoeing up to that line
Mhm.
and being ready for that, but never having crossed it.
Mm.
That stress, it would have been better if it had been crossed. Like looking back, it would have stopped so much. It would have ended things. But it,
Well, because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, like, yes, absolutely physical abuse. There's a line there, but I mean, you experienced a tremendous amount of exposure to emotional abuse
and verbal,
and
verbal,
gaslight.
yeah, it goes very, very deep. And
Mm,
there are many, many layers to the
yeah,
abuse that I experienced. Many different kinds, and the effects of those I had no understanding of at the time,
yeah,
but they were vast. And in that day, that I sat down on the couch at our friend's house, and that white Joe dog came up and jumped and just laid in my lap and just comforted me. Dogs know when
oh,
somebody
they're amazing.
is upset. And I remember my current husband looking over from, because we weren't even interacting. We
Yeah.
didn't like he didn't exist to me. But he looked over and he was like, she never does that. That's really weird. And I remember thinking, like, I know why she's doing it. She knows what's going on in my mind right now.
Oh yeah.
She can sense it. And I let my friend know, because I left early and went back to the cabin, and I let her know. I said, can you keep an eye out for my husband, because I'm going to let him know that I'm leaving. And I'm
Mm,
really concerned about what he might do. And she was the first person really that kind of knew. And I remember taking the girls and dropping them off at my mom's so that I could talk to him alone, because I didn't
yeah.
want them there. And looking back, I wish I would have taken somebody with me.
Yeah.
I regret that decision, but I went back to the cabin and I told him that I was leaving, and he was emotional and upset, but his response was, well, if you're going to go, can you just have sex with me one more time? And I remember thinking, I don't want to do this,
Yeah.
but I have to, because if I
Mm,
don't, he's going to be really angry. And this is the only way I'm going to be able to leave in peace.
it's almost like the transaction, one last transaction.
Exactly. And that was a theme of our
Uh,
marriage. So I finally left. I went, his sister owned a horse ranch up in Washington. They knew that we were getting a divorce. They knew that the separation was happening. And looking back, I realize now that they hoped it wouldn't happen. They didn't
mm,
want it to happen. Um, they didn't live right there. And when we would go see them, I was pretty good at covering up what was going on.
yeah.
They knew, and they really had the ability to know and understand if they really had wanted to, but they chose not
Mm,
to understand exactly what was going on. So they invited me to come up and stay with the girls and work on her ranch for a little while I figured out what I was going to do. I knew that I wanted to keep the cabin. It was my
mhm.
grandma's. It was generational, like 5 generational
Yeah.
property. It was a place that I had always wanted to live.
Yes.
And I knew I wanted to keep that, but I was giving him time to find a place and
Yeah.
move out. So I moved up there and started working at that ranch. And the family wanted us to go to some kind of a counseling in their church, because they thought
Mm,
maybe if you go through this like 8 weeks of counseling, you'll change your mind type of deal. And I remember them sitting me down and having conversations with me about people in their family, generations in their family that have struggled and have a hard time, that the men have had difficulties. And it's just kind of a family trait and a gene that they don't have much control over.
It's almost so the family was basically essentially enabling the behavior. Like this is just we can't control it.
Yeah. And basically
Mhm.
telling me it was my responsibility to stay, even though this was the situation that I was in. And giving me examples of women in their family who had stuck it out through horrible situations. And I knew these people, and they were the most miserable women I've ever met.
Oh wow.
And I am such a peacekeeper and a people
Mhm.
pleaser. And I would sit and listen, and I would try to do everything I could to help these people be comfortable with the decision that I had made to take care of myself and my children.
Mm. That's a
And
sentence right there.
that is the truth of the situation that was happening. I had made the decision. When I make a decision,
Mm-hmm.
it is done and it is solid. And I knew what I was doing, and I
Yep.
had no waver within me at all. But I played a dance for these people for a long period of time, going through re-traumatizing myself many times, going
Yes.
through a lot that made my situation worse, just to try to make everybody else happy with the decision.
And so how many years together had you guys been at this point in time in marriage?
7 years.
7 years. So it's interesting that there's these mini lectures on, oh, well, you should stick it out. I mean, you have given significant amount of time, devotion, and action to trying to be there. And what did it feel like to have people say that you weren't trying?
It was really painful to hear.
Yes.
I was so mentally exhausted. I had truly given everything I had.
Mm,
And I remember thinking, I am making this decision with the purest amount of peace of any decision that I've ever made, because I know beyond the shadow of a doubt,
yeah.
I have done everything that I could possibly do to make this work. I gave it my all. And I remember going through those weeks of counseling. I did it. And I
You
listened.
did.
Oh my gosh, I did it. I showed up. I listened. I did what they asked me to do. It got to the end, and the pastor looked at me and he's like, "Well, he sounds remorseful. Do you think you could give him another chance?" And I remember looking at him and being like, "No, you don't understand. This remorse is something I've heard over and over and over again.
Yeah.
This is not real. It is
Mm,
expert fabrication. And I know beyond the shadow of a doubt, if I stay, it's going to go right back to the way it was before.
yeah.
And I'm not doing it." I realized that this situation was no longer the best thing for my kids. I remember
Hmm.
thinking, I don't want my kids to grow up in a broken home. I don't want them to have to go back and forth between mom and dad's house. I
Yeah.
didn't want that for my family, but I realized them watching this and thinking that this was normal and okay was no longer the best thing for them.
Oh man, that hits like a sledgehammer when you realize like, well, no, I got two little girls of my own. Who
Mm-hmm.
what relationships are they going to have expectations of having if we
Yeah.
keep them in this level of exposure?
Right. I knew there was no way I was going to prevent them from they'd already had a lot of exposure to it, and they would
Mm,
continue to have exposure to it throughout their childhood. But to live in it every single day, 24/7, would be horrible for them. And it was unacceptable.
wow.
So I didn't have any money. I figured out through Google searches how to do a divorce myself. I
I
did
love your
all
determination. You became the lawyer you needed.
I did. I figured out how to do it. I downloaded all the documents I needed. I filled everything out. I sat down with him and we worked out what it was going to look like. And I was only focused on getting out.
Mm,
And I set it up in a way that he really couldn't say no to when it came to a
yeah.
divorce, because I just needed out and I didn't want to fight anymore. I had no
Yeah.
energy for fighting. So I remember right about the time that it was getting finalized and done, he showed up with this. We had so we had pretty rough vehicles for the whole time we
Yeah.
were married. It was, they were always breaking down. We lived out there at that cabin. They're full of mice. We had to put mouse traps under the seats. So every time I would go to get in this big, giant, broken down Suburban to go take the laundry into the laundromat, I would have to empty the mouse traps out from under the seats. And I would dump them into this big pile of mice that was outside of the Suburban. And it was rough. I remember the heater didn't work and I would have to I remember I had a frozen milk jug because we used frozen water to keep things cool because we didn't have a
Yeah.
refrigerator. And it was winter and the heater wasn't working. So the defroster wouldn't work. Couldn't get to see out my windows. But if you bang on the dash, the heater would come on. And I was beating on the dash. It wouldn't come on. And so I grabbed that milk jug and I hit it on the dash with the frozen milk jug, and it slipped and spidered the window in the car. So these kinds of situations were pretty common
Yes.
with these broken down vehicles. And I remember our divorce was about finalized and he came up to me with this brand new Toyota Tacoma pickup that he had taken out a loan and went and bought.
He went into debt for.
And he said, if you come back to me, you can have this truck.
Wow.
And I remember it just making me so mad that he thought that a truck would make me come back. That's when I was like, you have no idea
Yeah.
what is going on here and why I'm upset if you think a truck is going to fix this.
I mean, just a therapist inside me goes, man, he didn't even realize what he was communicating.
No.
I can't give you me, but maybe every once in a while I can give you a nice thing, but I can't give you me.
Well, there were many times throughout our marriage where he would give me something and then later it would be his. So, he would give me something for the accolades of the moment.
Yeah.
And the other thing that it signaled to me and made me so angry about was, okay, in this situation, because you're losing everything that you want, then you'll go get a loan and take it out and buy something that's nice. Once I leave, then you'll actually take on the responsibility of providing something nice.
Yeah.
But not while I'm there and not before this.
Yeah.
I remember that being just angering.
Yes.
So the divorce goes through. I have no idea how mentally, I hate using this word, but damaged I am. Like there was so much damage done. And in my mind, all I'm thinking about are these little girls.
Yes.
I'm like, how am I going to take care of these two little kids? They need, I need to get a job. I, don't have an education.
Yeah.
I don't have a degree. Jobs in that area are very limited, but thankfully I had an incredibly good reputation for being a hard worker, being a reliable person. And I had a lot of people who were invested in my success. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
I ended up going back and living at the cabin. I got siding for the cabin, which was a nice improvement, and a door that actually shut right, which was also great. Started
So
working.
here you are starting to reclaim certain spaces in your life.
Yes, I started working at a tree farm, and my kiddos were still under school age, so they would go and stay with my mom while I worked, which they loved and she loved.
Oh, yes.
And I was friends with the local police officers over there. I started working at the
Mm,
courthouse, and they had told me, you know, you would be a great cop. And I had always kind of wanted to be a cop. Um, my grandfather had been a police officer and a detective and the captain of the police department. And I really respected them. And with my
mm,
personality, it seemed like it would be a good fit.
yeah.
In the meantime, I had started kind of a long distance relationship with the friend that was at the house on the night that I had decided I was leaving.
Yeah. With Florida man.
With Florida man. We had just started talking back and forth. He popped up on Facebook as one of those people you might know because they're friend of a
Yeah.
friend. And I was like, oh, that's the guy with the white dog. And we started talking back and forth, and we were both reading the same book. We were reading
Mm,
American Sniper at the time. And so we
oh,
would hop on the chat, like the messenger in the
yeah.
evening, and kind of talk back and forth about the book. And he was a
Yes.
veteran and he had experience over in the war. And
Mm,
so I really enjoyed getting his take on the
yeah.
book. So we were talking back and forth, and I had started visiting with him, and he ended up moving back up to Montana, which was where he was from. He was stationed in
Okay.
Florida. So he moved back home. He got out of the service and started going to college there
Mm,
in Montana. So we had kind of been dating back and forth off and on. And I was working at the courthouse, but it was a nighttime job.
okay.
And so I could spend most of the day with the kids, and then I would
Hmm.
drop them off with my mom, and then I would go to work. And I would work the night shift, and then I would go pick the kids up in the middle of the night and go back to the cabin and try to sleep in. And I knew it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
The insurance was, I couldn't even afford.
Mm,
It would have been pretty much my whole paycheck just to have the insurance
yeah.
that they offered. I was like, this just isn't sustainable long term. I need
Yeah.
something more solid. And I remember when the friend who was the sheriff at the time was like, you know, we'll send you to post, and you can be a cop. We'd love to have you on the force. You'd be great. And I was like, I think I want to do this.
Yeah.
I think I want to go. And I got all excited about it, and I called my then boyfriend and was like, hey, I think I'm going to do this. And he got really quiet on the other side of the phone. And I was like, what's wrong? And he's like, well, you know, if you commit to doing that, they're going to want at least 2 years of service from you
Mm,
there in Idaho at that station. And I was
yeah.
like, yeah. And he was like, well, I was kind of looking at our potential future, and 2 years is a long time. And I just remember thinking like, oh, because I was still in survival mode.
Yeah.
I was thinking, how do I provide for the day-to-day
Oh, yes.
necessities? I was not looking to get married.
Yeah. You weren't looking at the horizon. You're still
No,
staring at your feet.
I had just got out of a horrible relationship, and I really didn't even want anything to do with guys. To
Yeah.
be honest, I was not interested in that. But Tristan was different. He was so kind to me. And
Yeah.
I had been missing that for so long that it felt really good to
Yeah. To have
be.
someone say, like, I want to spend a future with you.
Yeah, for somebody. And just being with him, he was Tristan had his own struggles. We kind of we connected at a time where we had both just left extremely traumatic circumstances.
Mm,
So he had been in the military. He was an EOD technician. So he was
okay.
explosive ordnance disposal, taking care of the roadside bombs and all that. And he had lost a lot of friends, and he had seen a
Absolutely.
lot of hard things. And he ended up coming
Mm,
home to bring home one of his friends'
oh, my
bodies.
goodness.
And this was about the time that we connected.
Yeah.
And I had just left a horrific traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm.
He had just left that. And we kind of had this connection because it took a lot to rattle me.
Yeah.
You weren't going to rattle me with anything that's day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing. After you've been 7 years in survival mode, the small things in life just are nothing to you. They don't matter.
No.
And the same was true with him. You know, the little things in life were just not a big deal. It just didn't matter. And it was hard to find somebody like that.
To resonate with.
Yes. So we connected really quickly because both of us were kind of operating on a different playing field.
Oh, yes.
Not necessarily a healthy one, but a different one.
Yeah. But it both sounds like you're trying to find your way back. But now I actually have an asset in someone who knows what I'm going through.
Yes, I could explain things to him. I could talk to him. There was no judgment. There was understanding.
Yeah.
And we had really connected, but I was still I really didn't want to have anything to do with the guy, and I really didn't want to get married. But this guy, he was like the only person that I really felt I could connect with on that level.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to post. I kept working there at the courthouse.
Yeah.
And I would go back and forth to visit him. And on one visit over to see him, I had brought the girls with me and we went on a hike.
Yeah.
And we're up hiking, and all of a sudden he's proposing to me. And I was pretty in shock.
You have to stop going to Montana.
I know. What is with this? And I'm standing there and I'm just like, holy crap. I'm getting proposed to right now. And I like at the speed of light, all this stuff goes through my mind. I know that my kids are going to become school age, and I'm not going to be able to homeschool my kids because I have to work.
Yeah.
The school in the area that we were in was not great, where the cabin was. As it currently stood, they did not have running water. They, lived in this tiny little cabin. Yes, we had a lot of support from my parents. They, they got baths. They had their laundry done. They were taken care of, but their current living conditions were not what I wanted for them.
Yeah.
It was not a long-term solution. They did not have a good father figure in their life. They had, an empty space there. I felt very safe with this person. I felt very loved by this person. But I honestly, at the time, I don't think I had the capacity for love. And it's still a difficult thing for me. Relationships, especially with a partner, is still very hard for me. There's a lot of pieces to that I'm currently working through.
Yeah.
But in the moment, for me, with the kind of understanding that I had of love, I looked at this and I'm like, this is a really good fit. This is going to provide security for my kids. This is a smart move. And when you're in survival mode, you make your decisions based off of that.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, like looking back, I don't regret that decision.
Yeah.
I have told people a lot, like, it's good to question why you're making a decision.
Yes.
Especially if you're somebody who could be in survival mode, or you're prone to that situation for whatever reason. You're going to make decisions probably not on the best foundation.
Yeah.
And I know that was not the reason. A lot of the reasons that I made that decision were not really the reasons I should have made that decision.
Yeah.
But in the end, I said yes. And he was so sweet. He had little rings for the girls, and he asked their permission. He said, "Is it okay if I marry your mama?" And they didn't have any clue what was happening.
They're like, rings?
And they were like, yeah. And so we go back down, and I was excited.
Yeah.
I was excited because to me, this was a new lease on life, a new chance at life.
When
I
was the
was,
last time you had been excited?
oh man, I I was just living.
Yeah.
I don't know, a long time.
I
I
mean,
mean,
when you talk about, when you travel through traumatic experiences, I've always sort of related as like people taking colors out of your crayon box.
mm,
And so when you say I'm excited, I mean, I'm wondering like, man, was the sky a little bit bluer that day? Was the grass a little bit greener?
there was elements of it that were, yes.
Yeah.
But then there was also this underlying, I knew this was not going to be an easy transition. And
Mm,
for my family,
yeah.
because yet again, I was still very concerned about taking care of everybody else's
Mm,
needs. And I knew that this was going to be a struggle for them because Tristan was not somebody that would have checked all my original boxes. Tristan was not a Christian.
mm.
He didn't have any kind of a religious background. There were so many things that I would have never even been dating him originally.
He would have been one of those you had turned down
Yes.
back on the camp.
Yes.
Sorry, your resume is not good enough, sir.
Resume does not meet my standards. But I'm looking at this now. And so here's two different versions of me. There's the one that thought, these are the qualifications that I need in a husband. I need him to be, a Christian. I need him to think these ways. And now on this other hand, I have this man who's incredibly kind. He's extremely responsible. He already owns a house. He already financially he was very responsible.
Yeah.
And they were completely opposite people.
Mm.
And I got down to the bottom of the hill. We went to some friend's place for dinner. They were very excited for us. We gave them the news. And then I called my mom.
Ooh, here we go.
And they had struggled so much watching me go through everything I'd gone through.
Yeah.
There was plenty of reason for them to know that I was still struggling. I was not myself.
Mm.
I had so much that I needed to work through, but I had no idea.
Yeah.
I felt like time was going to heal whatever it was inside me that, didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And they were very concerned about me. And when I shared with her that I was getting married to this man who was not a Christian, they knew that, and moving to Montana, it's like deja vu all over again.
Yeah.
They were very concerned. She cried on the phone. And I remember Tristan being confused.
Yeah.
And
because it doesn't make sense from his positioning.
Yes. From his position, this is a positive thing. He loves me.
Yeah.
He is very responsible. He's a very kind person. He's providing stability for me and my children, which is a lot to take on for,
a
young man. To him, and this should be
was
exciting.
This the first time that he was getting married?
Yes.
Okay. So again, looking at timelines, he has done a lot of self-sacrifice, whether it's service for the country and all these other things. And I would understand even more why he'd be like, well, wait a second.
Yeah, I have a lot to offer here.
I think I'm a good person.
Exactly. He is a good person. So for her to respond like that, he was just like, what in the world? What's going on with your mom? Because he was so excited and all of his family was excited and all of his friends were excited. Everybody else was so excited. But my parents had a whole different perspective coming into this.
There's a lot of fear.
Oh, yeah. Yes. So much so. And, he was 26 at this point in time.
Yeah.
I was 26, 27. And he's taken on, he didn't even realize what he was taking on.
It's a fast uptake here.
Yes. Not only, wife and 2 children automatically, husband, father, but also I had so much trauma beneath the surface that I was not even aware of. And he had no idea existed. And not only that, but these were 2 traumatized little girls.
Oh, yeah.
They had been through a lot and would continue to go through a lot.
Yep.
And he didn't realize what he was taking on. But thankfully, he's been a man up to the task.
There you go. He had the integrity to see it through.
Yes. So we worked it out. I ended up, I think it was probably April when we got engaged. We ended up getting married in the following August.
Okay.
And moved over here just in time for my youngest to start kindergarten.
Like you said, there was timelines of movement, right? And when we talk about like significance in planting where we're going to be, like whether it was buying a home or when your kids start school, that's another pretty, there the roots go down. There's some rigidity after that.
Yes. And he didn't, when I first was dating him, he lived in Florida. And when he moved over here for college, he was very, speaking of him, sorry.
His ears are burning.
He's like, what the heck? He was very he had a lot of forethought. And he started looking for a home that was near the elementary school that was known to be the best elementary school, because he had hoped that we would end up together and that the kiddos could go to school there, which was so cool. He got a place where we could walk to the school.
That's so cool.
He's a very special person. And we moved over. Bridger started school. My oldest started school. And right away, we knew that he wanted to have more kids. And because he wanted to have a child that was his bloodline.
Yeah.
And the girls were already getting older. We had basically 5 and 4.
Okay.
And knew that there would be a pretty significant gap there. So right off the bat, we started trying to have another kiddo. And right away, I got pregnant.
So there is also a pattern in that.
I am very fertile.
Yeah, you have to be very careful whenever you're in Montana, because it just happens.
You'll look at me wrong. That's all it takes. So 1 month later, was pregnant.
Oh my gosh. So there is no slow roll up or anything. We're going to try. We did.
Exactly. It was instant, basically. So he went from husband to father of 2 little girls to expecting father.
Yeah.
And this whole time, like, there is still a lot going on with my ex. You know, that this
it's not quiet. It doesn't just go away.
No, it doesn't end with divorce. When I decided I was going to make this move, he was very angry. I remember telling him outside of the place he was living, and I was across a pickup from him. He was on one side of the truck hood and I was on the other. And I told him that I was getting married and that I was going to move to Montana. And he was trying in every which way to tell me I couldn't, or to talk me out of it. And when he realized that that wasn't going to work, he slammed his hands down on the hood of the truck and then slammed his head into the hood of the truck. He was so angry. And as I always did in those kinds of situations, I was just extremely calm, very quiet, just watched. And
it's your trauma response right there.
Freeze. Yeah. Freeze, placate, wait it out. And I made the move. I paid very dearly for the move. When it came to traveling, I did all of the traveling for the majority of the year. So every weekend, every other weekend,
you were driving back.
Basically 2 weekends a month during the school year. I would drive 4 hours to Idaho on a tiny little river wilderness road.
Yeah.
Drop the kiddos off. And then at 4:00 in the afternoon, which is 5:00 in the afternoon on Sunday at home, I would pick them up and drive home and get home about 10:00.
And then they got to start school the next day.
And then they would get up for school the next day. And we would do that all through the school year, all through the winter. The drives in the winter.
Oh my gosh.
the winter drives could sometimes take 6
8,
hours.
9 hours.
Yeah,
If it was
depending upon the
bad.
road conditions.
Yeah.
And then in the summer, they would go for a week each month
Okay.
for 3 months, except for one of the months they would go for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And he would drive for those. So he would come get them and bring them home. So that was our pattern. And these little kiddos would turn into completely different people. They would have to. So that 4-hour drive was like a transformer.
Oh
that
yeah,
4-hour
you're watching them
drive.
like emotionally put on more clothes, right? Like
Yes.
they're putting on their battle armor.
They're turning into the people that they need to be for the situation they're going into.
That had to gut you as a mom.
Oh, it was so hard to watch. It was exhausting for them. It was exhausting for me. And every time I would go, then I'd have interactions that were difficult for me, because even just seeing him was hard for me.
Yeah.
And all throughout this time, I'm still not taking care of myself. There had been no time working through any of the stuff I had been through. And I was continuing to experience more things. It wasn't that the trauma was over now.
No.
It was lessened. It was lessened in its how much I was receiving on a regular basis, but it was still compounding.
Oh, yes.
And I wasn't working through any of it, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And I have come to understand this now as a fitness and nutrition coach and dealing with people with lifestyle.
Yeah.
When you are in a stressful situation, it affects you physically so much. Trauma affects you physically.
Yeah.
And I started to get sick, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was wrong, but I was not functioning well. I had so much brain fog. I could not think clearly.
Yeah.
I was absolutely exhausted to the point of keeping my eyes open was hard. I was cold all the time. My hair was getting thin. I was just run down to the point of it being difficult for me to function. I had now a brand new little baby boy. I had these 2 little girls with all this traveling. I was traveling with a baby. I would be driving with the bottle like behind me, feeding the baby while driving in the middle of the night on these highway roads to get my daughters home. And I went to doctors for quite a long time before they figured out what was wrong with me. But I ended up being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, which I've discovered is very common for people with trauma or high stress situations for extended periods of time.
Yes.
It leads to health problems big time. So my approach to helping myself with this diagnosis was to try to do it as naturally as possible. I wasn't at a point where they wanted to medicate me.
Yeah.
But it was kind of the beginning of me starting to take care of myself a little bit more. So I started to pay attention to my food and what I was eating and just trying to take a little bit better care of myself.
You're starting to develop that sense of like, I have to invest in myself because I am depleted.
Yeah. Like I'm not doing well. But I still didn't recognize the emotional piece, the emotional side of it. That piece of it was still elusive to me. The physical part I was starting to pay attention to, but I hadn't made the connection to the fact that the stress was a big piece of that.
Yes.
So I'm going to fast forward quite a bit because this went on for a long time. And it wasn't until probably a couple years ago when it finally came to a head.
Okay.
We had a lot of stressful things happen in our family. My husband's father unexpectedly, tragically passed away.
Oh my goodness.
And very shortly after that, his mentor passed away. And then a very close friend of ours, a very young man who I really respected and was close to, and he was a very positive influence in my life. He passed away.
Mm.
And I kind of hit that rock bottom. I was not responding well to my husband anymore. I used to be able to hide
Yeah.
what I was going through. I was very good at hiding.
You conceal it.
Yes, I would, pretend that everything was okay and everybody
Mm.
around me thought it was, but inside I was dying. I was
Yeah.
not well. And it was starting to show up in depression,
Mm.
massive amounts of anxiety, but that had been long term. But depression.
Yeah.
And it started to be unmaskable.
Yeah.
I could no longer hide it from my husband. And he at one point decided, he's like, you know what? You need to go to therapy. I had already tried a couple different times for different
Yeah.
things to go, and it hadn't worked out well. I didn't connect with the people, and I really
Mm.
didn't know why I was there, to be
Yeah.
honest. So I finally started going to therapy, and it has been one of the hardest things I've done.
Oh,
Incredibly
yes.
stressful, incredibly painful, but it's working. It's helping me to work through all of that stuff that I thought was going to heal with time.
Mm.
I remember being so excited for my 8th anniversary with Tristan because I was
Oh
good.
my
I told
gosh.
Tristan, I was like,
Because it was a new experience.
once we hit 8, I said, I'm going to finally have been with somebody who actually loves me longer than I was with somebody who abused me.
Ooh.
And I thought that if I could hit that milestone, that
Yeah.
all of a sudden everything was just going to get better.
It's almost like you were going to shed it, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
boom. I mean, it's something new.
But it doesn't work that way. Time
Uh,
doesn't heal some of these things.
yeah. Time
And
alone does not heal these things.
exactly. Yes. Time without any dealing with the underlying
Yeah.
effects of what you went through alone does not heal that. So that was kind of my entrance into finally starting to work on taking
Yes.
care of me, not only on the physical front, but also on the mental front.
Mm. And recognizing that you actually had those two components.
Yes.
Because I think that what you're really highlighting is for a long time you didn't think that the mental component would be an issue.
I was
Just take
still
care
in
of everything
survival.
else.
I was still in survival mode. I had no capacity to understand anything that was going on with
Mm.
my mind. That wasn't even a part of the equation for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.